The morning had that eerie kind of quiet. Too still, too perfect. Not peaceful, just wrong. No breeze. No birds. Just that unnatural silence that makes your skin itch like something's coming. Matthew Green stood on his porch. Hoodie zipped halfway. One hand gripping the leash of the only thing keeping him grounded. Ruckus, a golden retriever with eyes like worn leather, sat beside him, alert, scanning the cul-de-sac like he always did. Same loop, same time, same walk. That dog wasn't a pet. He was Matthew's lifeline, trained to detect the early signs of a PTSD spiral, to nudge him awake during night terrors, to guide him out of stores when the lights and noise triggered those buried landmines in his mind. Ever since Matthew came home from Fallujah, Ruckus had been his anchor, his team. And Pinewood Acres, with its manicured lawns and obsessively clean sidewalks, was supposed to be safe. The HOA here didn't allow for much personality, but at least it was predictable. That mattered. Predictable meant he could breathe. So when Matthew opened the gate that morning and stepped out with Ruckus into that sun-soaked stillness, he didn't expect trouble. Just the usual loop before the Florida heat started cooking the pavement. They'd taken maybe 10 steps when he heard it, an engine revving, sharp and mean, followed by tires squealing like they were angry at the road. Then came the sound. Not loud, not cinematic, just a sickening, soft thud. Ruckus yelped, and the world stopped turning. Matthew spun around so fast his knees almost gave out. The white Lexus SUV hadn't just skimmed the sidewalk. It was on it. The front tire sat exactly where his boot had been a moment earlier. And Ruckus lay on his side, one leg twisted at a wrong angle, panting like the air had turned to smoke. The SUV didn't stop, didn't even slow. No brake lights, no reverse, nothing. Behind the wheel sat Karen Whitmore, HOA president, mid-50s, blonde highlights, pearl earrings, and that ever-present expression like she was better than everyone but too polite to say out loud. Her hand was still on the wheel. The other held a phone to her ear like she was mid-conversation, like she hadn't just shattered the world of the man she passed. She didn't look horrified. She looked annoyed. Her lips moved, slow, sarcastic. That much shouldn't be here. Then she rolled on. Tires bumped off the curb and back onto the asphalt, and she was gone. Matthew stood frozen, heart slamming against his ribs like it was trying to escape. His brain couldn't decide if it was back in Kandahar or if this was somehow worse. There were no IEDs here, no enemy fire, just a quiet neighborhood where a woman in pearls decided his service dog was a nuisance. And now Ruckus lay on the concrete, motionless except for short, panicked breaths. The leash slipped from Matthew's hand. Ruckus! He choked, dropping to his knees. No bark, no whine, just a faint, desperate wheeze. And in that moment, on that HO manicured sidewalk, 10 feet from his own porch, a war-hardened Marine felt more helpless than he ever had on any battlefield. It started with footsteps. One pair at first, slow, uncertain. Then another. Screen doors creaked open. Curtains shifted. Neighbors stepped out, blinking into the sun like they just realized something had happened. One by one, they filled the quiet like spectators at a crash site. No one rushed over. No one knelt beside him. They just watched, phones in hand, faces twisted with confusion, concern, and distance. Matthew stayed on his knees. His hands hovered inches above Ruckus, too scared to touch him. The dog's leg was bent in a way legs shouldn't bend. A patch of fur near his ribs was stained deep rust red, the blood soaking into the golden coat like an accusation. His breath came shallow, barely rising, barely falling. Every sound he made felt like it scraped Matthew's insides raw. Somebody call animal services. Someone yelled from across the street. And 911, another voice chimed in. A teenager sprinted off with a phone to her ear. A woman gasped when she caught sight of Ruckus' twisted leg. A man stepped back, muttering Jesus under his breath, as if the sight might be contagious. Matthew didn't look at any of them. His eyes stayed locked on Ruckus. His lips moved, whispering something over and over. He's a service dog. He's my service dog. She hit a federally protected animal. He's a service dog. Ruckus whimpered once. Just once. But it was enough. That broken little sound stabbed deeper than any shrapnel ever had. 10 minutes passed before the sirens arrived. But to Matthew, it felt like 10 hours. The world had narrowed to the patch of sidewalk where everything good in his life bled quietly in front of him. And all the while, Karen Whitmore never came back. The first cruiser pulled up with lights spinning but no urgency. Just a casual turn onto the curb like it was another call in another sleepy suburb. Behind it, the animal control van eased into place. A young officer stepped out, notepad in hand, his posture hesitant. He approached like he wasn't sure who needed help or who might snap. Matthew stood now. His knees ached on the concrete, his palms stained with dirt and blood. But his voice, when it finally came out, was cold steel. Karen Whitmore. White Lexus. She hit him and kept driving. The officer blinked. Karen Whitmore? He scribbled something, then paused. Are you sure she saw him? Maybe it was an accident. Maybe she didn't notice. Matthew's head jerked up. That twitch in his left eye fired again. He had his vest on. He snapped. Bright red. Says service animal on both sides. And we were on the sidewalk. Not the grass. Not the street. The sidewalk. The cop gave a slow nod. Crouching to snap photos, measuring skid marks with a tape pulled from his belt. But the hesitation? That didn't go unnoticed. Matthew knew that look, had seen it in courtrooms, VA clinics, government offices. The moment when authority meets inconvenience and chooses comfort over confrontation. At the emergency vet, everything moved in fast forward. Machines beeping, hands moving, voices slicing the silence with clinical precision. Matthew sat in a hard plastic chair, blood on his jeans, staring at the wall like it owed him something. When the surgeon finally came out, she spoke like she was reading a casualty report. Fractured femur, internal bleeding, possible nerve damage, long recovery. If he recovers, Matthew didn't speak. Because when someone tells you your reason for living might never walk again, there's nothing to say. The bill was $17,284, and climbing. That's what the woman behind the desk said, her voice soft, like it mattered, like saying it gently made it hurt less. Matthew barely heard her. He was sitting on the floor now, next to Ruckus' kennel, in the ICU wing. One hand rested on Golden Fur. The other trembled in his lap. The painkillers had knocked Ruckus out cold, but Matthew stayed, counting the rise and fall of his partner's chest like it was the only thing keeping him sane. Then his phone buzzed. A message from a neighbor. Just a screenshot. Karen had posted on the neighborhood's next-door group. PSA. Pets should not be off-leash or in HOA common areas. Accidents happen. No apology. No remorse. Not even his name. Not even his dog's name. Just a passive-aggressive warning. Like he was a problem. Like Ruckus was a loose cat or a lawnmower left out too long. Matthew stared at the screen until his hands stopped shaking. And then, finally, clarity. He opened his laptop. He logged into the Department of Justice website. He wasn't just grieving anymore. He was documenting. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not with the beeping machines. Not with the ghost of Karen's voice in his head. He sat there in the blue glow of the overnight ICU, spine stiff, scrolling the ADA website word by word, reading every clause like it was a weapon waiting to be loaded. And then he saw it. Any harm caused to a service animal is legally equivalent to an assault on the individual with a disability and may be subject to federal criminal charges. His breath hitched. Not could be, not might be, is. He looked down at Ruckus, bandaged, bruised, still breathing. You held the line for me, he whispered. Now I hold it for you. By sunrise, Matthew had already made 3 calls. The first was to his VA counselor's emergency line. He kept it short. My service animal was struck by a vehicle. HOA president. I need documentation for ADA protections. Today. The second was to an ADA attorney in Jacksonville, a number tucked in his wallet for just in case. He'd never thought he'd use it. Now it was the only lifeline left. The third? The U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. After 10 minutes of button prompts and hold music, a live representative picked up, Matthew's voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It cut. My service animal was hit intentionally by a local HOA president. I have medical records. I have photos. I have public statements. I want to file a federal complaint under Title II of the ADA. I'm a veteran with a documented disability, and I'm not letting this go. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He gave them everything. Officer incident number, screenshots of Karen's post, HOA letters, photos of ruckus vests and injuries. He played defense his whole life. That ended today. When he finally stepped outside the vet clinic, the sky was barely pink. The world was waking up like nothing had changed. Sprinklers clicked on. A delivery truck rumbled by. Somewhere, someone was brewing coffee. Matthew wasn't the same man who'd left his house the day before. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his knuckles, stretched his back until the muscles stopped screaming. Then he looked down at the folder in his hands. Ruckus certifications, ADA compliance letters, VA records, vet bills, timestamps, screenshots. He wasn't preparing anymore. He was arming. Karen Whitmore hadn't just hit a dog. She'd committed a federal offense. And she was about to find out what it felt like when the system didn't look the other way. Karen didn't just double down. She detonated. It started with a post on the private HOA Facebook group. Matthew had uploaded a quiet photo. Ruckus asleep on his orthopedic bed, his service vest draped across his side like a flag. No caption, just grief wrapped in dignity. 5 minutes later, Karen fired back in bold admin blue font. HOA is not liable for vet bills caused by resident negligence. Next time, leash your mutt. No one replied at first. Then the dam cracked. You hit a service dog, Karen. What's wrong with you? One neighbor wrote. Another piled on. She's right. Dogs don't belong on sidewalks here anyway. Then the screenshots started. Old posts from Karen, unearthed by someone who had clearly been watching. Rants about fake service animals. Comments mocking veterans with PTSD. A meme comparing emotional support animals to stuffed toys. It exploded. Replies flooded in. Admins deleted comments. Someone restored them. Then they locked the thread. But Karen wasn't done. The next morning, Matthew found a letter in his mailbox. Folded perfectly. HOA logo at the top. Official, cold. As of this notice, the board considers you to be harboring a potentially aggressive animal. He read on. Given the recent incident and ongoing disruption, the HOA is issuing a formal citation in accordance with Bylaw 4.17b. Effective immediately. You are fined $500 per day until the animal is removed or relocated outside of community limits. Matthew didn't yell, didn't slam the table. He took a photo of the letter. Every word, every signature. Then he picked up the folder and added it to the stack labeled Evidence Retaliation. They had just accused a certified service animal of being dangerous and fined a disabled veteran for surviving a hit and run. Karen thought this was war. She hadn't seen anything yet. 2 weeks later, the Florida sun was already blistering by 8 a.m., baking the sidewalks of Pinewood Acres until they shimmered. Birds chirped from chemically perfect hedges. Sprinklers whispered across lawns trimmed to regulation height. It was the kind of day the HOA would have called pleasant. At the end of Juniper Lane, Karen Whitmore opened her front door in yoga pants and a pink tank that said, "Be kind," in gold cursive. Her ponytail was high. Her phone was in one hand, her acai bowl in the other. She was scrolling through complaints about mailbox paint colors when the black SUV rolled to a stop. 2 federal marshals stepped out. Behind them, a man in a navy windbreaker marked ADA followed, file folder in hand. No smile. Karen Whitmore? The taller marshal asked. She blinked, still smiling, like she was about to offer them a Pilates flyer. Yes. The second marshal stepped forward. You're under arrest for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, harassment of a protected individual, and willful injury of a federally protected service animal. Time stopped. The acai bowl slipped from Karen's hand, splattering purple all over the welcome mat. What? No, wait, I didn't mean it was just a dog. I didn't know he was. He never said. The marshal's voice didn't rise. You saw the vest. Then you posted about it. Then you fined him. Then you accuse a disabled veteran of harboring a dangerous animal. The ADA investigator opened the folder and read, Exhibit A, certified service animal in full ADA gear. Exhibit B, Facebook post using the term mutt. Exhibit C, HOA issued fines interpreted as retaliation. Exhibit D, past statements mocking veterans and service dogs. Karen's voice shriveled into a whisper. I didn't mean it like that. You don't get to decide intent, the marshal said. Not after the damage is done. Karen showed up to court dressed like she thought this was a misunderstanding. Polished blazer, pearl earrings, and that same tight-lipped smile she wore at HOA barbecues. Her legal team looked expensive, the kind that wore confidence like cologne. She thought she could charm her way through it. She thought wrong. Her defense leaned hard into denial. Poor eyesight. Didn't see the vest. The dog startled her. She felt threatened. The word fear came up 6 times in the first 5 minutes, like fear gave her permission to erase accountability. But the courtroom wasn't buying it. The prosecution started simple. Ring cam footage from 2 houses down. No sound, but you didn't need it. Clear as daylight. Ruckus, calm and leashed, walking on the sidewalk. Karen's Lexus swerving. The impact, her driving off without even pausing. Then came the ADA paperwork, certifications, medical necessity, Matthew's VA disability rating. All airtight. And then, the screenshots. Karen's own words projected in bold black font. Pets aren't people. Veterans should stop hiding behind dogs. Emotional props for adults. A juror winced. Another leaned back like they needed distance from the stink of it. But the moment the room turned, that came when Matthew took the stand. Full uniform, service ribbons glinting, posture like a statue carved from duty. He didn't speak loud. He didn't cry. He just looked the judge in the eye and said, That dog stopped me from ending my life. Silence. She didn't hit a pet, he added. She hit the reason I still go outside. A woman on the jury wiped her cheek. Another stared straight at Karen, like she could see through her. The judge didn't ask for more. And when the verdict dropped, guilty on all counts, Karen's knees almost buckled, because some sentences don't need a gavel. Just truth spoken plain. The judge didn't flinch when she read the sentence. 18 months in federal prison. $42,000 in fines. A permanent ban from holding any leadership position in a housing association ever again. Karen didn't cry, but something in her face cracked, like a mask held too long in the heat. As the marshals led her away, her ponytail bounced with every step. Doors didn't open. Neighbors didn't wave. Just one man in gym shorts called out from his lawn, Tell the board we're voting next month, and you're not on it. Matthew wasn't at the courthouse when it ended. He didn't need to be. He was sitting at the edge of the veterinary rehab center, one hand resting on Ruckus' back as the golden retriever limped his way through a slow lap. The vet had said, He's stronger than we expected. And Matthew, quiet as ever, just nodded. So am I, he said. He didn't need to see Karen fall. He just needed to see Ruckus rise. 6 months later, Pinewood Acres felt different. Karen's name had vanished from HOA records, scrubbed clean, like it never belonged there. The fine she issued, formally voided. The apology letter, pathetic and short. We regret the error. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was a new plaque, freshly mounted at the entrance gate, etched into steel. This community welcomes all, including veterans, including service dogs. No fanfare, no speeches, just truth in metal. Matthew saw it on a warm morning walk. Ruckus still limped, but wore a new vest and the same quiet loyalty. As they passed a neighbor pulling weeds, the man asked gently, What if the law hadn't backed you? Matthew didn't pause. I'd have reminded them who I am, he said. A Marine. The war wouldn't have been over. And just like that, they kept walking.